Ready to conquer the IELTS Writing Task 2 essay. We're going deep on this one, folks. We've got this study guide, and let me tell you, it is packed with insider tips.
Yeah, it's not like those other guides that just give you the same old generic advice. This one gets right to the good stuff so that you could actually use.
I like the sound of that. So what's the big secret? What's this guide saying that's so different?
You know, you'd think it would be all about, like, memorizing fancy vocabulary or mastering a million different essay structures. But it's not. It all boils down to having a strong opinion.
Really? Okay, so tell me more about that. Why is a clear opinion so important when you're writing an essay, especially in this IELTS context?
It's about showing the examiners you can make a case. They want to see that you can form an argument and present it in a persuasive way. A clear opinion, that's your backbone. You know, that's the central thread that everything else connects to.
So it's about taking a stance, owning it, and then building your essay around that.
Exactly. The guide actually uses this phrase, don't sit on the fence.
Don't sit on the fence. Oh, I like that.
Right. It's memorable, and it's so true. But it's not enough to just state your opinion. You've got to back it up.
That's where those examples come in, right? I did notice this guide talks a lot about using strong examples, and not just any examples, but ones that have, like, broader relevance. Can you elaborate on that?
Right. It's really tempting to just use personal anecdotes, like, this happened to me, so I believe this. But to impress those examiners, you've got to think bigger.
So instead of just drawing on personal experiences,
think societal trends, widely accepted facts, historical events, that kind of stuff.
Because it shows you're engaging with the world, not just your own little bubble.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these pieces fit together. We've got our strong opinion. We're backing it up with solid examples. What comes next?
Well, now we got to make sure we're presenting those brilliant ideas in the right way, right?
Right. Packaging matter.
Exactly. And that's where formal language comes in.
Okay, so no slang, no text speak. But how formal are we talking? Do I need to sound like I'm writing a Shakespearean sonnet?
Well, you don't have to go that far. But you do want to be mindful of your tone and word choices. Like, one big no-no is contractions.
Contractions like can't and wouldn't.
Yep, those are the ones they're fine in everyday conversation, but in a formal essay, they can make your writing seem a little,
A little too casual.
Exactly.
So no gonna or wanna either, I'm guessing.
You got it. It's all about that subtle shift in language to create a more academic tone.
So instead of saying, I'm going to ace this essay, I should say,
I am confident in my ability to excel on this essay.
Okay, yes. Much more professional. But I gotta say, sometimes I rely on those casual phrases to make my writing sound more natural. Is there a way to be formal without sounding like a robot?
There is, and this guide has a really cool suggestion. Focus on collocations.
Collocations. Now, there's a word I haven't heard in a while. Remind me what those are again.
Basically, they're just words that tend to go together naturally in English. Like, instead of saying big impact, you'd say significant impact.
Okay, so it's about learning those word partnerships that native speakers use without even thinking about it.
You got it. It's about internalizing those patterns. Start paying attention to how words are used together when you're reading articles or books, or even just listening to this deep dive.
That's actually really encouraging. So to recap, we're building our essay with a strong opinion, supporting it with relevant examples, and using language that's both formal and natural, thanks to those collocations. It's all starting to come together. But what about the structure of the essay itself? I always struggle with organizing my thoughts in a way that makes sense, especially in a high-pressure situation like the IELTS.
I hear you. And you know what? This guide has your back. They're big fans of the classic 4-paragraph structure. Introduction, 2 body paragraphs, and then your conclusion.
Right, the 4-paragraph essay. It's a classic for a reason. But I did notice something interesting in the guide about introductions. They actually advise against just paraphrasing the question, which seems a little counterintuitive. I mean, you want to show the examiner you understand the task, right?
Absolutely. You've got to show you understand the task, but you don't want to just parrot it back to them. You want to grab their attention. And this guide, get this, it's just a 3-part approach to crafting that killer intro.
Okay, I love a good 3-part approach. Lay it on me.
All right, so you start broad, general statement about the topic just to set the scene. Then, and this is important, you touch on both sides of the argument.
Oh, interesting. So you see the complexity, that it's not just a black and white issue.
Exactly. And then, boom, you hit them with your clear, concise opinion statement.
So you're setting the stage, showing you get the nuances, but then, bam, you hit them with your take on it. That's a strategy I definitely could have used back in my IELTS days.
Hmm.
Okay, so we've got this great intro. How do we keep that momentum going throughout the rest of the essay?
It's all about flow, right?
Slow! Yeah!
So you
Exactly.
want your ideas to flow logically. You
Yeah.
don't want the examiner getting lost in your essay.
Especially when they're probably reading tons of these things.
Exactly. And this guide has got some seriously good advice about that. One thing they emphasize is starting each paragraph with a very clear topic sentence.
Oh, like a mini headline for each paragraph.
Yes, exactly. Like a little roadmap for the reader telling them what that paragraph is all about.
So no more guessing games for those examiners.
Right. And then, of course, we've got our linking words.
Linking words, those are essential.
They're like your secret weapon for smooth transitions. Words like furthermore or on the contrary, as a result, things like that.
It's like you're putting up signposts for the reader, guiding them through your argument so they never feel lost.
Exactly. And then on top of that, this guide introduces a really cool technique called the PEEL method.
Peel. Okay, I think I've heard of that one, but remind me what it stands for.
So PEEL stands for point, example, or explanation, and then link.
Point, example, explanation, link. Okay, I'm starting to see how this works.
It's brilliant. It's a really simple way to make sure each of your paragraphs is well developed and focused.
So you start with your point, right?
Right? Usually your topic sentence will do that for you. Then you back it up with a relevant example or maybe more detailed explanation.
Hmm.
This is where those real-world examples we were talking about earlier come in handy.
Right, because anybody can make a claim, but you've got to back it up.
Exactly. And then the final step is to link that point back to the main essay question.
So it's like a mini argument within the larger essay. You make your case, you support it, and then you show how it all ties back to the main point you're making.
I love it. The PEEL method. Okay, this is all making so much sense, but I have a confession to make.
What's that?
I used to think that using really complex vocabulary was the key to getting a high score on the IELTS. I'd be trying to cram in all these big words even if I wasn't totally sure how to use them.
Oh, I think a lot of people fall into that trap.
It's so tempting to try to sound super smart.
Hmm.
But this guide, it actually emphasizes clarity over complexity, right?
It does. It does. Because ultimately, the examiners aren't looking for a walking thesaurus. They want to see clear, effective communication. Okay, that's a relief. So it's more important to use what I know well than to try to show off vocabulary I'm not comfortable with.
Exactly. But that doesn't mean your writing can't be sophisticated. You can definitely add some sophistication without sacrificing clarity.
How do we do that?
Well, the guide suggests using things like linking words, which we already talked about, but also conditional statements, relative clauses, even just simple contrasts. These are all grammatical structures that can make your writing more academic and engaging without making it sound too complicated.
So it's about striking that balance between clear, concise writing and also showing a good command of the language I'm starting to understand. Right?
Exactly. And speaking of grammar, I know that can be a bit of a stumbling block for some people.
Oh, yeah, grammar, and I have a bit of a love-hate relationship. It's definitely important, but it can feel overwhelming sometimes. What's the guide's take on how to handle grammar for the IELTS? So give it to me straight. What's the guide's wisdom on grammar?
You know what I actually really like about their approach is they emphasize that you don't have to be a grammar expert to do well on this thing.
Okay, that's good to hear because some of those grammar rules, man, they can be tricky.
They can be, but the guide really emphasizes just getting comfortable with the basics.
So brush up on the essentials.
Exactly. And use the tools that are out there. Grammar books, grammar checkers, practice and feedback. That's key.
Practice makes progress, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Now, before we wrap up, there's one more crucial piece of this puzzle we need to talk about. Where do those amazing ideas actually come from?
Ah, yes, the million-dollar question. Because sometimes I feel like I sit down to write and my brain just goes completely blank.
I think we've all been there.
So how do we avoid that dreaded writer's block, especially in a high-stakes situation like the IELTS?
Well, this guide has a really interesting take on this. They say those winning ideas, they don't just magically show up on exam day.
Oh, so it's not about cramming in a bunch of information the night before?
No, not at all. It's about cultivating this kind of awareness, this curiosity in your everyday life.
So it's about reading widely, listening to podcasts like this one, having interesting conversations, really just paying attention to what's going on in the world around us.
Exactly. Because the more you engage with different perspectives, different ideas, the more you're going to have to draw on when it comes time to actually write.
It's like building up this mental storehouse of things to write about.
Exactly.
I love that. So it's not just about this one test. It's about becoming a more engaged thinker, a more curious person overall.
Right. It's a lifestyle.
Okay, so we're living our best lives, soaking up all this amazing information, and then we walk into that IELTS exam feeling confident and prepared. Anything else this guide throws in there to help us absolutely crush that essay?
You know what? It's so simple, but they emphasize this over and over again. Answer the question.
Okay, that seems obvious, but...
But you'd be surprised how easy it is to get off track when you're under pressure.
Oh, yeah, especially with that clock ticking away.
Exactly. So they really emphasize things like underlining the key words in the prompt, referring back to those keywords constantly as you write, making sure every single point you make clearly links back to the question you've been asked.
So it's about being your own editor, making sure every sentence earns its place in that essay.
Exactly. Don't leave any room for interpretation. Make it crystal clear.
Okay, I love that. So much good stuff in this guide. It's all about those strong opinions, those clear topic sentences, that impeccable grammar, but also that sense of purpose that comes from really answering the question you've been asked.
It's all connected.
It really is. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel so much more prepared to tackle the IELTS Writing Task 2 now, and I hope our listeners do too. Remember, it's not about becoming a different person overnight. It's about taking these tips and making them your own. Practice, experiment, and most importantly, believe in yourself.
You got this.
That's right. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the IELTS Writing Task 2. Until next time, happy writing, everyone!